Hi, welcome. I am excited to do some baking with you. I'm sharing fall baking recipes. I'm doing oatmeal chocolate chip bars, an elevated boxed muffin mix. We're doing a little spin on that to make it unique and tasty. And then pumpkin banana bread. Can't wait to share these recipes with you, so let's get started. I thought we'd start with a really easy recipe. I'm going to elevate a boxed muffin mix. It's really easy, but it's surprisingly delicious and adds a lot to it. So I'm just using this pumpkin muffin mix from Trader Joe's, adding in oil. I did avocado oil, water, eggs, and the mix, and just mixing it until it comes together. Maybe somewhat unique additions happen a little bit later, but I like to use a third measuring cup, like a third cup measuring cup, and it fits perfectly in a muffin cup, and I just have a standard muffin tray here. A spoon does work just as well if you want to use that. Now to take these up a notch, I have two different options that I'm going to try out. First, I love putting this turbinado cane sugar on top of the muffins before they're baked. I love doing this for muffins. It adds a sweet kind of like crunch and it looks kind of shiny and almost sparkly on top. So I'm gonna do that for half of them. Turbinado sugar reminds me kind of a bakery muffin. We get that kind of crisp top, but it's a really delicate, light, fluffy, moist muffin. And then I'll show you the other idea I have once these are baked. I just thought I'd do something fun and different and unique just to enhance a boxed muffin mix that's super easy to make. So the turbinado sugar on half, and then I'll show you what else I'm gonna do on the other half once these are baked. Didn't get a clip of taking the muffins out of the oven just because life got in the way, but for the other half of the muffins, while they're cooling, I am making a cinnamon sugar topping. So I've done this on donuts before, like baked donuts, and it works really well. So I just melt butter, a couple of tablespoons in one bowl, and I pour cinnamon sugar in the other bowl. I did get like already made cinnamon sugar for Christmas last year, I think from my sister, but you could also just make your own, mix cinnamon and sugar together. And that's what you do. So you dip the muffin in the butter, make sure the whole top is covered in the butter, then dip it in the cinnamon sugar. I also decided to just kind of sprinkle the cinnamon sugar on top. I thought that worked a little bit easier because I didn't add a ton of cinnamon sugar to the bowl because I didn't want to waste any of it. So that worked really well. So I think they're both really good options, but the pumpkin muffin mix from Trader Joe's is pretty good. You could do this with any muffin that you think these toppings would be good on, any boxed muffin mix, but a really easy hack if you want to give it a try. Just to do a little something extra for a boxed muffin mix that doesn't really add much time at all, but it adds a lot of flavor and some good texture as well. Now on to the next recipe where I really wanted some cookies, but I just didn't feel like taking the time to make them. So I made an oatmeal chocolate chip bar, and a spoiler, it was amazing. It was really good. So the first thing I'm doing is just softening some butter. I definitely could have just let my butter sit out on the counter, but I didn't actually know I wanted to make these bars until I decided to make it. There was no planning ahead. So basically, in a bowl, I just put the softened butter, which got a little bit melted, eggs, vanilla, brown sugar, and granulated white sugar. But once I went ahead and mixed, I used a hand mixer. I mixed up the wet ingredients, then on top, I just added the dry ingredients. So I add the dry ingredients next, which is salt, flour, baking soda, baking powder. And then I mixed it a little bit, added in oats, and then chocolate chips. It was a lot chocolatey, and I think I would prefer it with less chocolate, but it was amazing. These bars were amazing. But if you like something really chocolatey, add the full amount of chocolate, which is 2 cups. I did half chocolate chips, half chocolate chunks, just mostly because I didn't have enough chocolate chips. I love using one bowl for baking. It's just so nice. I love the least amount of cleanup I can possibly do. My younger daughter was very excited to help me with this. She was really into it. I lined a 9 by 13 with parchment paper. I love using parchment paper for easy cleanup. It also makes things really easy to cut. which is a nice perk as well. But I baked it in the oven at 350 for about 25 minutes, 26 minutes, but my oven doesn't quite close all the way, so it doesn't stay as hot. So that's what I did. I really should have let these cool completely before I cut into them, just to make them look a little bit prettier, but we're all about just like function over here. We were ready to eat them. My kids are ready to eat them. So while they were still hot, I just sliced them right up. They were pretty gooey. They were really delicious. You could cook yours however long you like. I really don't like, I think cookie bars can get overcooked pretty easily, especially in the outer couple of inches. And I just don't really love that. And these bars had a great texture. They still held together, especially once they cooled. If you want to make them pretty, just let them cool completely. But they held together really well. They kind of had a slight crisp on the outer edge, and they were gooey, but fully cooked in the center. Just great. Loved the flavor. I loved the oatmeal. I thought they added a nice texture, and then you got that oaty flavor as well. I'd highly recommend these bars. I'll definitely link the recipe in the description below. A great recipe to make if you want cookies but don't want to take the time to shape each individual cookie. Just all in one pan. Done. Really good. I have all of these bananas, so we're going to use a couple, and today I'm going to make banana pumpkin bread. I'll link the recipe below, but I just don't want these bananas to go to waste, and they're like the perfect redness for pumpkin or for banana muffins or bread or anything like that. So we are going to get started. I just turned my oven on to 350. I'm not going to go in order of the recipe just because I only want to dirty one bowl. So I'm in the bowl. I'm just going to mash up this banana really well. I'm going to go ahead and put the eggs in next. That way they can get really well mixed. Now I'm going to use canned pumpkin. Makes this recipe nice and makes this recipe great for fall. I'm going to get 1 cup of pumpkin and put that in there. And then we'll do about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm also going to add a 1/2 cup of white sugar, a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, as well as a 1/2 cup of oil. I'm using avocado oil. You could use whatever kind of oil you'd like to use. And then I'm just going to give it a nice stir. I'm going to incorporate all of these wet ingredients first, and then I'm going to add in the dry ingredients. Now we're getting started with all the dry ingredients. So first goes in 2 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. I love the smell of pumpkin pie spice. Okay, I accidentally added, that was cinnamon. So I'm gonna, I'm not a perfect cook. I feel like I tell you this in every single video because I'm always making mistakes, but I'm just gonna leave it. That was 2 teaspoons of cinnamon instead of pumpkin pie spice. I'm actually going to look at the pumpkin pie spice and see what it has. Cinnamon, ginger, cloves, nutmeg. Well, it's gonna be a very cinnamony pumpkin bread. And then, so since I added 2 teaspoons of cinnamon instead of a 1/2 teaspoon, I'm just gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. Just check the labels on your spices before adding them. And then I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. I did look at the labels for this, so I got that right. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna kind of estimate. And that's it. That's all the ingredients. I'm gonna stir this only until it combines. I don't wanna overmix it. You could also add chopped walnuts to this if you'd like. I'm just gonna leave it out. Sometimes I use this parchment paper trick, but not all the time, but I just crumple it up and that way it stays a little bit better in my loaf pan. I feel like I'm a little bit less likely to have the batter just kind of spill over the edge. You could butter your loaf pan. I'm just using parchment paper. I'm gonna get the batter in the loaf pan, and I also preheated the oven to 350, and I will link the recipe below, but things usually take a little bit longer to bake in my oven, but the recipe does say it takes 50 to 60 minutes. I definitely use the toothpick trick just to make sure it's fully cooked because it's kind of hard to tell if things, especially breads like this, quick breads, are cooked. So use a toothpick, make sure nothing comes off on it. And that's it. Those are the recipes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.